When working with RAW files, it may be necessary to export your RAW file to Photoshop or some other application for additional processing. It's important to know that when you make image adjustments in Lightroom, the adjustments do not overwrite the original image data. This means if you were to open the same file in Photoshop, your adjustments would not be seen. To illustrate this concept, I'll make an adjustment to this image and open it in Photoshop. I'm going to go ahead and make a very dramatic color, temperature, and tint adjustment so we can clearly see that these adjustments were not actually applied to this image. Now keep in mind, I'm not exporting this image. Exporting would mean I'm going to select the Edit In option from my menu and then edit in Adobe Photoshop. In this case, Lightroom would export this image with the changes as a TIFF file. What we're trying to demonstrate is if we were to open this exact NEF file in Photoshop, these changes, you'll notice, have not taken effect in the image. So let me go ahead and open Photoshop to make that more clear. So here's the myraw.nef file. So when I open it, Photoshop opens it in Camera Raw, which is the application Photoshop uses to process RAW files. You'll notice right away that the changes I made in Lightroom have not been written to the file, and that's why in Photoshop we're still seeing the original image as is. Okay, so I'll go ahead and close that down. Now, to make sure that image adjustments and metadata such as keywords, copyrights, and any other important changes are visible in Photoshop, we need to configure our catalog's metadata settings. Okay, to do so, go to Lightroom and click on Catalog Settings. Now click on the Metadata tab. You'll see an option here to automatically write changes to XMP. If left unchecked, you'll see a warning. Changes made in Lightroom will not automatically be visible in other applications unless written to XMP. Well, we just saw an example of this firsthand. The changes we made in Lightroom were not visible in Photoshop. By placing a check mark here, we ensure that the changes are saved and thus visible in other applications. It's important to note that the changes are not written to the original RAW file. They're actually stored in an XMP sidecar file. Let me go ahead and open the folder that contains this image, just to show you the sidecar file that Lightroom creates. Okay, so here's the myraw.xmp file, and here's the corresponding myraw.nef file. So this here is the sidecar file that stores any adjustments you do. That's why anytime you make changes to this RAW file, you're not affecting the original file. That's one of the great things about editing in Lightroom. So now that we have this option checked, all we need to do is right-click on our file, select metadata from the menu, and then select Save Metadata to File. When you do so, you'll see a dialog box appear asking you to confirm that you want to save your metadata to this image. So go ahead and click Continue. So it says this photo has been changed in an external application. Now this dialog box here, you probably won't get that. I made some changes to this file earlier. So it's just asking me if I want to overwrite the settings. I'll click Yes. And I'm going to go ahead and open this now again in Photoshop. And you'll notice that this time the changes we made in Lightroom have been written to our sidecar file, which Photoshop has interpreted. And so for that reason, we can see the changes in Photoshop as well.